Good afternoon, everybody. I wish to welcome you all to today's event. My name is Annette de Tour, and I'm the faculty representative at this occasion. Aarhus University Faculty of Health has accepted that José Manuel Cerdán de las Heras completes the studies for the Ph.D. degree by giving a public lecture entitled Tele-Rehabilitation with a Virtual Autonomous Agent in Chronic Lung Diseases. The committee appointed by the faculty to examine the PhD dissertation with the same title is Professor of Physiotherapy, Marie Carmen Valenza, University of Granada, Faculty of Health Services, Physiotherapy Department. Consultant Clinical Associated Research Professor Nina Skavlan Godfredsen, Department of Respiratory Medicine, Hvidovre University Hospital, Denmark, and myself, Professor Annette de Tour, Department of Rheumatology, Aarhus University Hospital, Denmark, and Department of Clinical Medicine, Aarhus University. The main supervisor during the study is Professor Senior Consultant Elisabeth Benstrup. After the lecture, by the PhD candidate, the members of the committee will perform an oral examination. And if anyone in the audience wishes to ask questions, this will be possible after the members of the committee have finished their examination. And I now give the floor to you, José. Please turn off your mobile devices and so on.
Maybe I should be the first to close my mobile phone, sorry. So, yes. Good. Thank you for this presentation of the PhD defense today. Well, I think I have to present myself first. So I have a background as a physiotherapist. I've been living the last almost 30 years in Scandinavia. And I finished physiotherapy in Gothenburg, but also a master in physiotherapy. And then I built on IT in ITU University with another master. So I've been always combining technology with physiotherapy in order to help myself to treat patients from a distance. So today I present this project, Tele-Rehabilitation with a virtual autonomous agent in chronic lung disease. And we will go through these three different points. So first, it's going to be about the thesis background and rationale. After that, we will go article by article, going through the introduction, the methods and main results and conclusions. And to finish, we will finish with the clinical implications and perspective of this research. So let's start. So regarding the background and rationale, I have to tell you that when I was finishing my studies as a physiotherapist in Gothenburg, I had a very challenging subject where I was in the need to train many people around me via a training, specific training in Scandinavian named Friskis och Svettis or Jimpa. And there you have a leader that is in the middle of a group and all the people is around you. So you are in the need to follow the pace of a certain music, remember many exercises, there are many. And for me, it was a big challenge. The point was that I was not able to remember everything. So I was thinking, how can I help myself in order to make this easy for me? I was reading in Illustrera Vetenskap, a magazine on technology that they were developing these augmented reality glasses. And I thought, wow, this is an interesting electronics that can show me what can I do. And then I can still have eye contact with my team, with my patients, and train together with them. In 2007, we have this kind of challenge. So people in our countries were getting older with more chronic disease. in a way that we are more sedentary in our society, and it was a challenge to reach patients living in countryside. So with all the physiotherapists we have. So I was thinking how we can solve help in this kind of challenge we have in our society. And I thought that potentially the idea that I have to help myself could be something that I could put in the hands of my patients. So instead of me training the patients could be trained by themselves at their homes using an agent that could show them what they should do. And this idea, I call it the virtual physiotherapist agent. But it's not until 2013, when I was finishing my master in IT, that we finished the first version, a group of people in IT and we developed this software that works in a browser. It's a software as a service, is the name. And we started to have the first patients training with this. So we have some good testimonials, and one of them was Gert. He was suffering from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. He was living in the countryside. He was followed up by a doctor in a hospital in Aarhus. And he was invited to go to pulmonary rehabilitation in the hospital. But because of the distance, it was impossible for him to go twice a week. So he saw an advert about us where we were offering this online physiotherapy, and he says, okay, I should try. And we started training with him, and after the first week, he told us that he was sleeping much better. And after the fourth week, he was able to ride his bike. So the success was so good for him that he says, you should talk to my doctor. And the doctor today is my supervisor, Elizabeth Benstro, that is here. And from that time, she put me in contact with Ule as well, and we decided to do something. They were asking me, can you do the same with Gert, with many other patients? And I say, let's try. We had also another patients with multiple sclerosis, but because this thesis is about pulmonary disease, I will just go to the next slide. So the question is Tele-Rehabilitation the solution for this kind of challenge we have in our society? And what is written in the journals about this? So we know that Tele-Rehabilitation is, among others, an approach to reach patients in long inhabited areas, moving patients from healthcare to self-care, meaning that instead of we take care of them, they should learn how to care self. Empowering patients' awareness of their disease, so how they should cope with their disease, and increasing the flexibility patients need in order to acquire healthier behavior. So this is what the Tele-Rehabilitation was for. There were research already done in neurological, musculoskeletal, and cardiopulmonary rehabilitation, and we know that it was at least as effective as usual care, and the long-term effects of this treatment seems feasible. This was when we started to design this study. But we understood that still we were in the need to have studies on the efficacy, the cost effectiveness, but also what were the key behavioral change techniques that really make the patient to persist in training and have this long-term behavioral change after the training, for example. So addressing the patient group that we wanted to treat, and we are talking about the lung patients, we were in the need also to address the research to the frailty patients, also patients that are working and need some kind of flexibility in order to train, all the patients that were living far away from the hospital, like Gert, but also try to address something about rare disease, because rare disease means that there is not so much research on them, and we really need to give the same treatment as other diseases that are more known. So what we did was to create a whole consortium. We were funded by Eurostars with 2 million euros, and we have 4 companies developing the next version of our platform, and then 2 hospitals that were supposed to use this new platform and train heart chronic patients in Finland, in own university, and lung patients in Aarhus University Hospital. So our aim in that consortium was that we wanted to empower patients to cope with their disease, warranty high quality service from the healthcare, reach those patients that were not able to participate in rehabilitation, and try to improve healthcare effectiveness and cost. We got some kind of inspiration from an other study that I did at Vidovre Hospital, where I, together with another team, we created a portal that was supporting patients finishing rehabilitation. So we wanted them to keep going with the training they had in the hospital, and we developed that portal. The point is that that portal was interesting. We give access to all the patients during a certain time, and then we invited them for focus group and interviews, and all that feedback helped us to improve the platform that we are using in this. So our vision at that time, when we started with this consortium, was to develop the virtual autonomous physiotherapist agent. And this is a combination of different technologies. The first one was the augmented reality, where the patient can see the agent, have free hands to move. A biometric sensor that tracks information from the patient inside. And this combination was really interesting because we could do our agent to be autonomous. So it means that according to what the sensor says, and through a support system, this information will make the agent to change behavior and adjust the training 100% to the patient according to the biometrics. So an example, if a patient was doing jumping jacks and was getting breathless and the heart rate was rising and the oximetry come down, then the agent will understand, okay, patient is going to stop. I'm going to do some exercise for him or her to continue training. Just an example. So they were able to see also e-learning to cope with their disease and answer questions and so on. But in the middle of the consortium, we had a challenge. The company that was developing the glasses for us went bankruptcy, and suddenly we were like, okay, what should we do? And we decided to change the glasses with a tablet. So in reality, the whole project has been executed with tablets and sensors instead of glasses. So the studies that I want to present today are going to be 4. The 3 first are clinical trials. The first one was based on chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, where we had 54 patients. The next one was IPF, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is the name of the disease, with 29. And the last one is pulmonary sarcoidosis with 30 patients. To finish, I will talk about the 4th article that in reality was the first I was working on, where we work on these augmented reality glasses. We test this with patients and we make a qualitative study on that. So let's start paper by paper. So the first one is published in Journal of Clinical Medicine. The name of the article is Effect of a New Tele-Rehabilitation Program versus Standard Rehabilitation in Patients with Chronic Obstructive Pulmonary Disease. And we know from here that pulmonary rehabilitation is recommended to improve the exercise capacity and quality of life of this patient group. The challenge is that not all the patients attend to this pulmonary rehabilitation because of they are frail or there is long distance, as we have been talking about before. So the hypothesis of this study was, can telerehabilitation with this VAPA be an alternative solution? And in order to follow, to see if there were some changes, we investigated the feasibility and efficacy of telerehabilitation program on exercise capacity with COPD patients. We did in a single center study, meaning that it was just one hospital, prospective, non-inferiority, meaning that we wanted to compare the training in the hospital with the training with VAPA. So we had two arms, a group that was trained in the hospital and the other with VAPA, and patients were randomized. So it's a method in order to say you go there and you go to the other group. In the intervention group, patients were trained 2 months with Telerehabilitation. There they had video and chat consultations with a therapist. At the same time, they had workout sessions with this virtual autonomous physiotherapist agent. So a physiotherapist like me followed them from a distance, but they were training with this autonomous agent. The control group was training like in the hospital twice a week during 8 weeks. And they normally train with different physiotherapists, and they have some workshops with many different specialists to understand how to cope with their disease. So the parameters we follow was exercise capacity, and this was done with the 6-minute walk test. This test is a test where patients were walking through a 30 meters path. They were walking around, and we just count how many meters they were able to walk during 6 minutes. Regarding quality of life, we use 3 questionnaires: St. George's Respiratory Questionnaire, Instrumental Activity of Daily Living, and the General Anxiety Disorder Score. And to assure that patients were stable, we followed their lung functions with 2 variables here: forced expiratory volume in the first second and FVC. And all these tests were done before they started in baseline, after 2 months, and then 3 months later, and then 3 months later, to see how well they were developing. The Tele-Rehabilitation platform we used at that time had the opportunity to create exercise sets, e-learning, questionnaires, and all these things, we put them together in a rehabilitation program for each patient, and it was customized for each patient. Then physiotherapist was able to follow up the patient from a distance or have video consultations. The patient instead were using this sensor that was attached to the chest and a tablet in order to interact with a virtual autonomous physiotherapist agent or having video consultations or chats with the therapist. The results of this study is that in the baseline, we saw that we have 54 patients, so 50-50 in each group. But suddenly we saw that the patients that were coming to the hospital were a bit older, 72.5 years, all in their mean, compared to the intervention that has 67.6. But no difference were in the lung function or the quality of life. Making the follow-ups and making the test for the non-inferiority, here we decide that the non-inferiority margin was 35 meters. So it means that there should be a different less than this. And what we have here is the mean of the difference and the confidence interval. And it is supposed that in a non-inferiority study, this box that you see here should be in this side of the test. So as long as it is in this side of the test, we can say that the VAPA was not inferior to the training in the hospital. And we were able to show that after 8 weeks, 5 months, and 8 months. Yes, we saw as well that there was a numerical increase difference in the intervention group compared in the 6-minute walk test compared to the control, but it was not statistical significant. The p-values were not as they should be if there was a difference between these 2 points. And it points as well that potentially it's because this is not inferior, meaning that both groups were equal. Regarding the quality of life, we were not able to see any difference. When we addressed the patients in the intervention group and we asked about their satisfaction, we got 168 response during the whole trial, and they were measuring their satisfaction with a Likert scale going from 1 to 5, meaning that they measure it for 4.3, very close to 5. So we understand that they were very happy on using this platform. And from there, we understand that in the first period, 21 patients finished the 8 weeks. From them, we asked if they wanted to continue training, not with contact with a physiotherapist, just with a VAPA. And 10 of them decided to train 3 months more. And then after the 3 months, just 5 decided to continue training. They were training almost the same each time. The strength of this study is that it's randomized and it has a long-term follow-up, but the limitations are that the power calculations are just based on the 6-minute walk test. So we could not address this in the quality of life or other variables that we had to say that it was not inferior. We had a high drop rate because of lack of commitment of some patients or transportation issues in standard rehabilitation. And potentially the small number of randomized participants could have provoked that the patients in the intervention were younger. The conclusions of this study is that Tele-Rehabilitation with VAPA is feasible for COPD, is also non-inferior to hospital-based pulmonary rehabilitation. We saw that exercise capacity improved in 6-minute walk test distance after 8 weeks rehabilitation, 3 and 6 months follow-up. There were no changes in quality of life, and VAPA potentially is a future tool for COPD rehabilitation. Next paper, it's published in International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. The name is Tele-Rehabilitation Program in Idiopathic Pulmonary Fibrosis, a single-center randomized trial. Here we understand as well that this patient group, if they go to pulmonary rehabilitation, they can potentially improve their exercise capacity and quality of life. The challenge with this patient group is that there are places like here in Denmark, they don't have any pulmonary rehabilitation. Normally it's because this is a rare disease. There are a few patients scattered in big geographical areas, and it's difficult to put them together in groups to train. So at least in Denmark, it's not possible. In other countries, it's, and well, they are also frail, and some of them have long traveling distance to hospital. Our hypothesis was the same: can Telerehabilitation be a solution for them? And we investigated again the feasibility and efficacy of VAPA on exercise capacity and quality of life in this patient group. This study was a single center, again, just in our hospital, prospective randomized. In the intervention group, patients were training 3 months instead of 2, and it is just because normally they are following the hospital every 3 months, so we decided to do it for 3 months instead. They have video and chat consultations with a physiotherapist, and they train with the virtual autonomous physiotherapist agent. The control group in reality had no treatment at all, so because we were not able to put them together in a group. So that was the difference. We follow again exercise capacity with 6-minute walk test. I explained it before. Then this time we changed the quality of life questionnaires. We use some more addressed to them: the King's-Breath interstitial lung disease and the St. George respiratory questionnaire, just for IPF. And then to see that patients were stable, we follow the lung functions FVC and DLCO. All those tests again were done after during baseline, after 3, 6, and 9 month follow-up. the results. So here in the baseline, we have more males in telerehabilitation with VAPA compared to control. And we saw again that the age in the control was a bit more older patients than in the intervention. But when we try to understand the results of the follow-up, we saw that patients in intervention, they were more stable than the patients in the control group. And we were able to see a significant difference between these 2 points in 3 months and these 2 points in the 6 month. Not in the 9 month, but well, this is another study that we did a little bit deeper that is not part of this PhD. Regarding quality of life, even though you can see potentially a big difference in those points, there were no statistical difference at all. And in the patient satisfaction and adherence, we were able to see that that patients score the whole experience with 3.8 in a scale of 5. So they were not as happy as COPD patients, but they were happy somehow. 15 patients finished the 3 first month training with the platform. Of them, 5 decide to continue training, not with connection with a physiotherapist, and 3 continue training of these 5 after the 6 months. Strengths are the same as the other study. Limitations, we understand that we have a small number of randomized participants. This could cause that the intervention group to be younger in the baseline. And again, dropout rate might have influenced the results, but it's very normal in this kind of patient groups. Our conclusion is that telerehabilitation with VAPA is feasible for IPF. Exercise capacity was maintained at 3 and 6 months follow-up, while remarkable decrease was shown in the control group, as I showed before in the graph. No change in quality of life was seen. Last clinical trial was published in sarcoidosis, vasculitis, and diffuse lung disease, and the name of the study was Effects of a Telerehabilitation Program in Sarcoidosis. Here we know that pulmonary rehabilitation is recommended to improve exercise capacity for this patient group, but the challenges are that today there is no defined training with regards of the exercise frequency, the duration, or the intensity for this patient group. On top of that, the participation of this patient that is in a work age, meaning that they are busy with family, work, and so they have a challenge in order to introduce physical activity for themselves. So the hypothesis was, can telerehabilitation program be a potential solution again? And our aim was to motivate patients with sarcoidosis to increase their physical activity with the use of telerehabilitation, and analyze the effects and usefulness of telerehabilitation with VAPA on exercise capacity and quality of life. This study was very similar to IPF, the IPF study, single center prospective randomized study. Participants should be stable. Intervention was like the IPF, 3 months of telerehabilitation with video and chat consultations with a physiotherapist. And then the control group have no treatment at all, because we have no opportunity to bring all these patients together for that, as with COPD. We follow again exercise capacity as the other 2 studies. The quality of life was the same like in IPF, and at that time we didn't have some validate translate to Danish better questionnaires, so we use the same like in IPF. But in lung functions, to assure that they were stable, we follow the FVC, FEV1, and DLCO. And all these tests were done in baseline 3, 6, and 9 months. The results were as shown here in the baseline. We saw that we have 66% more males in the intervention. Regarding women and females, we had a younger group in the intervention. And regarding lung function in FV1, we could see that the patient in Tele-Rehabilitation with VAPA had a better function. In any case, after 3, 6, and 9 months, we were not able to see any statistical difference, even though it was increased numerically. There were no difference in quality of life, so no statistical difference. They were very similar. And regarding patient satisfaction, just in the intervention group, they scored the same like IPF, 3.8 in that Likert scale of 1 to 5. And here we saw that the patients were 15 that finished the first period of 3 months. Of them, 7 wanted to continue, and of those 7, 3 months later, 2 wanted to continue training and train with VAPA. Strength, again, is the same like the other 2 studies, but in limitations, we had a low number of participants. We saw that few of them had very mild disease. So we had a big spectrum of patients with sarcoidosis. So our standard deviations were really wide. So it was inconclusive to find a good result on this treatment. Dropout rate could influence as well, and because we were not using any specific quality of life questionnaire for this patient group. So our conclusions: no significantly beneficial effect of telerehabilitation with VAPA in sarcoidosis. Exercise capacity, even though at 3, 6, and 9 months follow-up improved numerically, was not a statistical significant. And no change in quality of life was seen in this study. Last paper is the one I was talking about augmented reality glasses. It was published in Disability and Rehabilitation Assistive Technology Journal. The name was Augmented Reality Glasses as a New Tele-Rehabilitation Tool for Home Use, Patients' Perceptions and Expectations. So the challenge of this study is that patients with chronic pulmonary and heart disease have difficulties to change behavior to a more active and healthy lifestyle. So our hypothesis was, can an augmented reality glasses training be accepted by chronic patients? And our aim was to explore their perceptions, expectations, and so on in these 4 different diagnoses. IPF, I was talking about before, COPD, but now also myocardial infarction, that are the patients that were treated in Finland. So what we did here was that this company that was part of the consortium borrow us a demo glasses that they normally use for any project. We put inside a program of training, and then we give this to patients. They were testing that, and they were trying to imitate the agent doing the exercises. And after that, we put them together in focus group, or we had in-depth interviews with them. So we use a topic guide to question them, and everything that was said was recorded and transcribed, and from there we use a standard thematic analysis to understand what patients were saying. The results were those, and this was just the feedback, and this company was in the need in order to continue developing the glasses just for this patient group. So patients asked to have this kind of glasses with adjustable screen brightness, meaning that if they come out or are inside, that the brightness just changes so they can still see the agent. These should have robust head fixation, so when they move quickly, that the glasses are always in the place. It should be easy to navigate in the sense that they say, I want to train, and then the agent will appear and start training. so not many menus and such kind of things. And they were in the need to get some feedback. So when they were trained, they wanted to see that, okay, I'm doing it well, or I'm getting better and better, or whatever. The strength of this is that we have 3 different chronic disease in 2 countries. The outcome could be applicable potentially in Scandinavia. The limitations is that we have few patients, and extrapolations of these results maybe cannot be put in other chronic disease than the ones that we interview. So our conclusions is chronic patients describe the added value of augmented reality glasses in Tele-Rehabilitation program. The improvements for a future version of these glasses was suggest, and for sure we were in the need to make more research on that. The clinical implications of this whole study is that we think that we are in the need of research with a greater cohort of participants, potentially with many other hospitals at the same time, and try to focus on scientific superiority in COPD and IPF. We should address in new studies more specific questionnaires, at least for sarcoidosis. And regarding sarcoidosis, we think that much better to do next study with just patients that are suffering sarcoidosis in the worst levels of scarring stage 2 to 4. We think as well that VAPA should be studied in patients with other chronic disease. Regarding perspectives, we think as well that this technology can be combined with others. So there are, if we combine VAPA with automated oxygen titration, and this technology I will explain is a new technology that adjusts the oxygen you breathe according to how much oxygen you have in the blood. So for example, the patients that train with in pulmonary rehabilitation, normally they tend to have less oxygen when they train in high intensities. So if the patient gets more oxygen, potentially we can make them to train in higher intensities. If we mixture this with the sleep behavioral sensors, if you remember Gert, that patient that I told you before, he was sleeping much better after the first week. So we can understand that if we get this information day by day, we can automatically change the training according to how well you sleep. We can mixture with augmented reality. What's the point with this study? But that company went bankruptcy. So we think still that there are opportunities there. And the last one is electroencephalogram sensors, meaning that there are some sensors that can track activity in your brain. And in that activity, we can measure when a patient is really motivated to do an exercise. So if we know which kind of exercises are good, then we can put them again and again, so the patient is always motivated to train. Yeah. So the future possibilities of VAPA technology for different patients groups or combined with other technologies are wide and will potentially bring value not just for the patients, but also for our society. I wanted to give a special thanks to my supervisors and the research team that helped me a lot, and the research unit in the hospital that took care of the follow-ups, but also the sort of funding that, because if it was not for this funding, we could not be today here. And a special thanks to my family, my Dorothea and Jasmine, that has been always there, and I think that this PhD is part of them as well, so it's not just my PhD, it's their PhD. So I give back the word to the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all of you for coming today as well. So.
Thank you, Jose. And we will now give the floor to you, Nina, as the first opponent.
technology. You know. So, can you hear me?
I think they can see us from there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to read your thesis and your studies and hearing your lecture, and to the audience and your family. I will tell everybody that I'm obliged to ask. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Is this better? That's better. Okay. But I'm obliged to ask you some critical questions, because that's part of your study as an academic, of course, and I guess that you are prepared for that as well. And
I hope so.
So it's not because I'm an evil person, but of course we do this assessment committee. We have already asked you some things that you responded to, and you have, in my opinion, you have improved your thesis and put it into a context which is now kind of everyday life is becoming for those chronic patients, and the opportunities we have to improve their daily life. That is not only just medication and things like that we doctors do. So, and I also think it's very interesting with your invention, of course, but I would like to ask you what, because I mean something has happened, because when you did this kind of Delphi study, or at least the study, the focus group study, right? That was then at that point you were counting on using the glasses, and it's kind of different because you can walk around with those and do the exercises, and now it turned into something that was different, right?
Yes, that's.
Can you just tell a little bit about how, I mean, then people had to stay at home, right, and do the exercises?
Yes, well, in that study, we had an interview with different patients where we were asking how they would like to be more motivated to train. And I remember there were some IPF patients that says, I want to be far away from hospital because I feel sick in that way. And if I have to train, I would like to be in nature. And then we were thinking, well, this is something really interesting, because this technology, you can be everywhere in the urban space or in a park, and then could be potentially giving the needs that person have. So, but the point is that suddenly we didn't have those classes. We were expecting them to train at least at home and have that experience. It was funny in the sense that some patients, even though they were on holidays, they took their tablet and their sensor, and they went to Club La Santa y Lanzarote or to their summer house, and they were trained as well there. And this is something also different from what they were supposed to do in the pulmonary rehabilitation, that they should attend to the hospital. So somehow they were integrating this in other things they were doing in their normal life.
Okay, and then you actually also have a section very nice about the corona pandemic that suddenly struck the whole world and made it necessary for in all settings, in the communities and hospital, offer people with chronic lung diseases some kind of pulmonary rehabilitation. They were needing to think these treatments in a new way. By, for instance, introducing tablets. So, and you write about that yourself. And then I thought you did not mention anything about maybe, yeah, only a little bit, but how would it be possible to compare? Because this is kind of a natural experiment. I mean, the classes, they went bankrupt, and you had to do something else. And Corona came, and had to do something else in communities and hospitals, also involving tablets or iPads or whatever. So what did you see, either a possibility or a thing you could study with this regard, with your invention, and then what actually happened? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Yes, of course. Suddenly we saw that we had some technology that for many was more like nice to know, no need to have right now. And suddenly was like, give me this, we need this to train. What happened is that in these two clinical trials, we finished, I think it was the last part of the sarcoidosis trial that we have some follow-ups. So in reality, we were not in the middle of the pandemics, and we were never able to put this in practice with real patients, not even with COVID-19. But we hope that in the future this can be introduced in new projects and research, or if any hospitals wants to work with that, maybe they want to use for that. And I think the solution gives some value that potentially many will like as the patients that participate here. But still, we need to research more on that. I'm sure of that, and we can always improve much better. For example, mixturing with those technologies I was talking about.
And I wonder if you could say a little bit about, because this you offer a training program or some modules. What are the pros and cons of that compared to the same technology, maybe also with the tablet, but supervised training versus unsupervised training?
Well, this is a hybrid. So you have a therapist that follows the patient online, and that therapist gets reports of what the patient is doing, and then is an agent training with them. So this is supervised autonomously by artificial intelligence. Then we have some other kind of technologies that, for example, the one that you have a therapist that is meeting patients in a certain time, a certain day, and everybody meets online and they train. So this has another values, but still there are some things that patients were asking. That was flexibility, meaning that this is something that we experience. For example, I had patients that suddenly 11:30 one night when we went going to bed, I got an SMS of a patient saying, "Hi, Jose, I have scored 1,100 points." And I was going to bed and I say, "Wow, this woman is trained right now." I was totally astonished. And this is something that we were not able to see, for example, in this training online, where the physiotherapist meets all the patients together at 10 o'clock in the morning, Thursday morning, for example. So I understand that there is some extra flexibility in this technology that we cannot offer with other kind of telerehabilitation solutions.
But what can you lose in this regard compared to where you meet physically on the standard programs that have been developed?
We were thinking that potentially it's just this kind of the socialization, yes. But then we understood in a previous, for example, in the research that I did in Vidobre Hospital, we were asking a lot of these things. what about, would you like to meet more with patients that has been participating in pulmonary rehabilitation or heart rehabilitation? And the patients were saying, no, in reality, I don't want to participate more in the hospital. I want to be with my family and friends in my environment. So socialization, just with family and friends, that being with people that are sick as well, because somehow they make them as well to feel more sick. I understand that there are groups that potentially are more alone, like the COPD patients. We have seen this if we compare the COPD trial with the IPF, COPD patients were always alone. The IPF, all the family was involved. They were training with them. Some of them. It was like it was a different person that we meet in these two groups. I think for IPF, potentially they are more willing to be in their family, in nature, and so on, than feeling sick with other patients. So, but yes, can happen that potentially COPD are a bit more less socialized. But when we see, for example, this Likert scale score that was 4.3, I think, we think it was high. So we understand somehow that they were happy, even though maybe they were not socialized.
Did you have some patients who did not want to be enrolled in that
yes,
study?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and there were patients that we say, this is a randomized study. As soon as you open this envelope, then you will see which group you go. And I say, you have to assure me that you want to participate in the study, no matter which group you are. And we have some patients that say, okay, and then we open the envelope, and it says you have to go to control group. And they say, okay, I don't want to participate, and they left. So we were like, oh, so there were some patients that were really willing one arm or the other.
But did you actually make the intention to treat analysis in the first study, since you had some who, when they found out what group they were in, they did not want to participate? It's because I speculate a little bit about also the age differences in all the studies, maybe especially in the sarcoidosis.
Yes, in the sarcoidosis, well, there I think I think the randomization was what it is, and there are groups that says yes. And some that says no.
But it's because if people they withdraw when they found out what, because of course you cannot do this as a standard blinded randomized trial. Of course you cannot do that because they know everybody knows what group they would be allocated to, but then you can make the analysis like that if you assume that nobody withdrew because of what group they were allocated to. So then you make some, and maybe I'm asking if you had a statistician to look at least the first.
Yes, of course. I had always a person that was helping me in that area.
Yeah.
To be sure that I was not taking wrong decisions or wrong.
Yeah. And did you make baseline tests with the COPD patients or all the patients before the randomization, so that you did not know what group they were?
Well, no, we did the test as soon as they decide to participate in the study. But in order to attract the patients, we were in the need to go through their journals and see if there are two things that I don't remember the word, but we decided these kind of patients can participate, and then we invited them to participate.
Yeah, but I mean, if you included them in the study and made tests, and then you randomized them, or did you do it the other way around?
Well, we had a list of patients in our pool, and then as soon as they were invited to pulmonary rehabilitation, I asked if I was able to ask them to participate in my study. And this is the way we started to get them inside the trial.
Okay, yeah.
So it was not...
actually, maybe I missed it, but I think you did not show us now the inclusion criteria, did you, for the patients in the various studies?
No, I have not in these slides.
I know it. No, you didn't have it in the slides. It's because you said that. Well, I've concentrated on the COPD study and the thesis, I should say. So Carmen on the other papers. But you say that your COPD patients were maybe better than in other rehabilitation studies, but I don't think that's the fact, right? Because they had a mean FEV1 of about 33%.
So you want to say in the baseline they were better than other patients?
No, I don't. But you said that for your calculation of the needed participants in your study, that these patients were they were stable, yes, but that just means that they did not just have an exacerbation or had previously been to rehabilitation and things. I guess, and because I'm asking you now about the inclusion criteria, were very, you didn't have any upper limits, only lower limits, but you did actually have patients with COPD who had a very low FEV1 and also a low 6 minutes walking distance. But I guess that's what you expect because you had the patients from Elisabeth or Ole's outpatient clinic, right? So it's just because I want to tell you that you also had approximately 10 dropouts from both those groups in the first study.
Yeah.
And I maybe think that you did not include those in your power calculations because it was, I mean, you always anticipate 25 or 30% dropout for COPD patients who are much worse off than especially with sarcoidosis and maybe also your IPF patients. So most other studies, this is just for your information and for the future, right?
Yeah.
Because I looked into it, and it's surprisingly that, I mean, you have a new technology, we have one at Hvidovre, and there are some others going on in Australia and United Kingdom, other countries, maybe some of them driven by the COVID pandemic, but still there are very many reviews already assessing the technologies and the Tele-Rehabilitation, while there are actually very few studies, very few intervention studies. So it's very good you made one, and that's somebody has done it. But just to tell you, those that are newer, and I know it was not when you started your study, but there is one from Spain, which is a maintenance, and you also know I want to ask you, it's not a trick question because you will have it yourself, but I mean, what are the most important outcomes for people with chronic respiratory diseases when you want to make an intervention rehabilitation study? What would be the most important things to study?
So the most important is that they don't get so often breathless and they have an opportunity to have a normal life, that they can move, and so this is one of them.
Quality of life is what the patients normally say themselves, but that's very difficult to measure because you have to have really a lot of patients.
Yeah.
And next is what you have done, and most do, that you assess the 6-minute walking test.
Exercise capacity.
Yeah, which is totally fair enough. But I just want to tell you that a new large study from Spain, they had 94 patients to detect any difference in the 6 minutes walking distance. And another one, Tele-Rehabilitation, which is an equivalence trial, which also is non-inferior. They had 142 participants. Then an interesting one, actually comparing pulmonary rehabilitation in IPF and COPD. They had 163 patients, another one also more. So normally to say something for sure, you have to include those people you anticipate to drop out. So I just have to say that you had it was a very small study, and it's always legitimate when you because you introduce something new, and new technology that you invented yourself even, that it would be okay to make a feasibility or pilot study as you did with IPF and sarcoidosis. You could do that. Then maybe you would it would be more certain that it was not inferior. But
yeah, we have some challenge with our study in COPD, and the point is that we started to base our sample size on shuttle walk test. When we started the study, this test was not implemented in the pulmonary unit, and we were in the need to change to 6-minute walk test that it was the normal. On top of that, we had suddenly were in the need to move from one hospital to the other, so all the unit was on the way to close. Everything was we were moving to the new hospital, and this created lots of different problems in order to start to get more new patients, a new place. Suddenly the hospital was far away. Patients were not reluctant to come so far away for the rehabilitation. So at the end, we finished with these 54 patients, and that was approved by the ethical committee. And from there, we started to base the
But it's okay. I can also see from your results that you have this normal results. For you don't know that actually they're normally that people they improve in the beginning, and then it kind of flattens out, and then after those 5 to 8 months, it's the walking distance or the achievement starts to decrease, and that's actually what you see from all rehabilitation studies. And also that you don't actually reach statistical significance for what you expected people to increase, and maybe that is also now because, especially in COPD, that people have those people that we have in the hospitals, they have so very severe disease, so the improvement is not as large as it was maybe back in the days when all the rehabilitation studies began, and they always could show that there was a gain in the walking distance. And now there's also a gain, but it's only not very large anymore. Well, yeah, we have lots of time. Yeah, I have some more, both general and specific questions. Actually, considering COPD, in which, as you also said, it's a more prevalent disease than IPF and sarcoidosis, what is the most important intervention at all in COPD? I know that you're not a doctor, but...
Well, I hope that should be pulmonary rehabilitation, but they have lots of different medical treatments according if they are getting an exacerbation, or so there is corticoids, there are different things.
Something that I think maybe you did not
stop smoking and such kind of things.
Yes. Well, what did you do with those you had in your study who were still smokers?
Well, we had a different e-learning package that was developed in the different hospitals. This is something that we, before we started the study, we had workshops with the nurses and doctors, and we asked all of them to figure out where can we find videos that are interesting to show to the patient, and add some multiple choice questions to those videos. So we created e-learning package, and patients were trained and watching an e-learning package, answering some questions. So to assure myself that the patient was stopping smoking, I was not more able then to show some videos and see that they understood the message of the video about how they should stop smoking or where they should address themselves in order to start a treatment on that. And that was the only thing. And if they were failing to answering the questions, then I have meetings with them to follow up. And then I was asking, I have seen that this e-learning, somehow you never respond right the questions. So should we talk about that? And then we started some discussions on what kind of things they should do and so on.
Yeah, because I guess you agree that it's very important actually that you can give some very concrete advice to the patients if they are smoking and are motivated, so that it is integrated in your platform.
We try to use validate videos from different hospitals.
Yes, and then there was this question about the amount of training, right? Because because it was kind of optional. You had this lower limit that they had to train for
60 minutes.
60 minutes during
a week.
1 week, and
in sarcoidosis 90.
But how did you find that people, like they were doing those 60 minutes?
Yes.
Or was it very?
The point is that I understood that. No. So I told them that in order to train, I was expecting them to train at least 60 minutes every week, and they were able to choose when and how many minutes. So some patients decide, okay, I want to train 6 days, 10 minutes. Okay, I want to train 3 times, 20 minutes. Fine. When do you want to train? And we take patient's calendar and put the training there. So the point was that they should train at least so much minutes.
But you had a tracking, right? So you could
yes.
see if it motivated them more, if they started with a small amount, but it didn't seem like it happened that way. Now I'm just curious because it's a question if you have the supervised training either face to face or by tele. I guess you know what I mean. For some people, they are okay by motivating themselves. They can pick up this tablet and say, "Now I'm going to do it." And many people don't. They have to say, "Now somebody has to tell me I have to do this 20 minutes every day."
So we were able to follow their heartbeat, and we could see when they were getting higher pulse or not. And
but was that when they were training, or just the higher heartbeat? And it could be because
no. During the whole training, we follow the heartbeat, and the agent decide by an algorithm. Now I'm going to give you a little bit more pauses because I feel that you are breathless right now, or you are on the way to stop. So we could get information about how many pauses patients were getting, how long, how many seconds they got in total in pauses, then how many minutes they were training, and of those minutes, if it was in level A, level B, level C, or level D, we have 4 levels of intensity. So with that, we were able to see if I give you this exercise training with the VAPA agent, I could see day by day if they were getting more or less pauses, if they were training more in the high intensities than in the lowers, and so on. So it was a lot of information we were able to track.
Okay, and another question regarding that, because there are some national recommendations in Denmark for people with severe COPD regarding training, that if they're not able to do very hard aerobic exercises, then it is okay to do some anaerobic strength muscle exercises that do not involve necessarily augmented pulse and heartbeat. So how did you, I mean, what kind of exercises?
Then we have some elastics, or we ask them as well to have a couple of bottle. They feel also much water they wanted, and we have some exercises where they could see, okay, there are some weights, I have to use them. So we could program the exercise set according to the wishes of the patient, and that was the point. So normally we finish the first week, and then we make a follow-up. Then if the patient was okay with that exercise set, we meet 2 weeks later again. And if they wanted some change, we made them. Normally they say, okay, I think it's very easy, I would like to train 5 minutes more. Okay, so we changed that. But normally it was always to go to more and more and more the whole time. Because we understood that if we keep a training of 60 minutes, it's not going to work from day one. So we need to be in the level they are in the start, and better to give a better success feeling of I finish my exercises than give a lot of training at once and then feel like, oof, this is too much for me. So that was the point with dividing a whole hour according to how many minutes they wanted to train different days of the week.
Okay, so do you plan on doing any more studies with the COPD patients? And
yes, could be really interesting, but I needed a break. It has been really hard 5 years, and those is just a PhD. We have 2-3 years before as well. So you can see my family right now is like, no mass. Yes.
Although I'm not supposed to ask a lot about the other groups, I do wonder with the patients with sarcoidosis, were they very sick? Do you think were they in need of rehabilitation?
Yeah.
And were they all fatigued? Those that you asked to join the study?
We had a big. No, the point is that we had some that were in the first phases and some others that were in the last ones. So it was difficult to figure out if the training was good for all of them. But I understand that potentially we should focus in the ones that are in the higher levels, 2 to 4 in scanning stage. And I understand that they are in the working age of their life, so they need something flexible. So that's.
Yes, and is that something that society should pay for? That just to take it a little bit further, who should we now yeah. As you know, yeah. even though even now you live in Denmark, and it's not only Denmark but the whole world. We are in like economic crisis. We cannot afford everything, especially not in the healthcare system. So, what would you say that we should? It's very important that we use a lot of millions to offer pulmonary rehabilitations to patients with sarcoidosis, or should we use something else?
Not in the way it is done today. So if it is going to be like, let's meet twice a week at 10 o'clock in the morning, then it will say at that time I'm working, or I have to leave my kids in the kindergarten or whatever. So if we invest in that, should be something that is more flexible.
Yes, but should we invest in it? It's not whether it's flexible. Should we? I pay tax, you pay tax, we all do.
They pay tax as well,
yes,
so
yes.
They should get a service that is.
Yes, but yeah, but does that service, do you think, include giving them this tablet or reality glasses?
In that sense, well, I think we are in the need to figure out some kind of business models that are good for the public and the patients itself.
But if you had to decide, should you spend the money on patients with COPD and IPF or sarcoidosis? Which would you choose?
The two first, that's for sure, because they are the most chronic ones, and the other one are younger. Well, I don't know, because they are younger and they are going to have this disease the rest of their lives. So the time expectancy of them is going to be longer than COPD or IPF. So I think in the long run, maybe it's going to be equal costly.
But will people recover from sarcoidosis?
No.
I know you're not a doctor.
But
Yes, most of them will.
Do they? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not the ones that I have seen. I have seen some that die
Okay.
because of this, and
80%
suddenly
of them at least.
I have seen some that die in the trial. And I understand maybe there are some other comorbidities, but I understood that the disease suddenly was really reactive. So, but I'm not a doctor,
No,
so this is what I experience.
We will not dwell on that, but
and I hope that all of them can cure. That's for sure.
Yeah, they will. So these two last group, they are pilot studies or feasibility studies, which are fine, and you compare them with usual care, which is also okay because it's in, as you say yourself, some patient groups that are not well studied with respect to rehabilitation, whereas COPD, you cannot anymore make studies of an intervention where the usual care group does not receive anything. That's now unethical, we know that now. But still, I mean, your hypothesis, what you expected, what would you be, like say if we had this audience now, we're all sitting comfortably, some of you, if we were just like kinds of people that were just sitting on couches, watching TV, sitting on chairs, not doing anything, and we were randomized to go to some training for several hours for 8 weeks, and the others were not. Then what would happen?
Well, I hope that the ones that are more active will improve their health somehow.
Yes. So my point is that you could also take people who are not sick and put them on a training comparing to a usual care.
Yes, it is true.
And you would have the same curve, right?
Yes, and that's the point. But if we are talking about entrepreneurship, science, to be a scientist as well, you cannot go, for example, to investors and say, hey, I have a solution for all the people that are sedentary. And they say, well, you have to prove at least something. And it's really interesting to go, for example, to a rare disease that are few, everybody, you can know how they are and so on, and get a first success. And from that success, then you can start to move to other kind of people around. So yes, my point was let's make all the people more active, the sedentary people.
Yeah.
But
then again,
yeah.
A priori, what would you expect, or what would be the difference then between IPF and sarcoidosis? And if you should choose to make the study again now, is one of those groups that you would focus on and maybe not the other, or?
Well, I have seen a success in IPF, and I would like to make a bigger study on that. I've been trying to ask Elizabeth and other hospitals if they are interested to make a multiple center randomized study. Could be really interesting, and I think that working with our statistician Fernanda, we were working a bit more in some numbers, and we understand that potentially it's really effective to get the antifibrotic treatment and train than just train. So I think there are some hypotheses there that I would like really to research.
And again, between those two groups, which
IPF.
would be the
IPF.
Yes. Okay. And my last question before I hand over to Carmen is because you mentioned it sometimes during your thesis. It's one of your references, or maybe something that gave you the idea about this VAPA also.
Yes. Yeah.
But he did not look into physical activity or quality of life. Is that true? He had some more like physical parameters.
I really would like to
Pulse
meet
and blood.
this person that did that study. For me, it was a really inspiration, and
Yeah,
That-
tell us a little bit about why.
so at that time I was working in Frederiksberg Hospital with Klaus Panahet, and we wanted to. I was starting to write my PhD plan, and in that environment, he had a lot of people coming there, and one guy come there and started to talk about decision support systems, and I was, what is this about? And he was using this for some other things for COPD.
Was that in that epithelial?
Yeah.
Working? Yeah.
So
It was that people could be treated for their COPD exacerbations at home instead of at a hospital, right? Was that?
yeah,
that
and
was the thing?
right now they are independent, and patients are paying for that by themselves, as I understand.
Okay. And then he also had some telehealth solutions.
Yeah. So that guy talked about decision support system, and I started to research on that, and I found Song's article where he decided to create a system with an ergometer bike where the patient was pedaling there, and they adjusted the intensity automatically according to blood pressure, oximetry, and pulse. And they created an algorithm. If the pulse falls so quick in so many seconds, then the intensity has to fall. If this is increasing, so it was like 9 rules in the decision support system. I say, that's funny. I would like to see. I don't see a patient having an ergometer bike in their living room or a trail mail, as I have seen in some other studies. I need to give something more handy that they can have at home. And then I decide to implement the same algorithm in this VAPA. So instead of having an ergometer bike that changed intensity, we did it with exercises. The intensity was changed according to easy or more difficult exercises.
For all the types of exercises.
Yeah, so we in our platform, what we did was we had a set of exercises that were easy to do, some other that were some more difficult, normally sitting exercises, standing exercises, balance exercises, strength and aerobic exercises. And then our algorithm was choosing, okay, next exercise, this one, and this exercise now there, because the patient is stable, let's give more power intensity in the exercise. And the patient got suddenly breathless, then the agent say, okay, let's take now one that is easier. So the patient intensity was something like that, going up the whole time and finished really high. And there we were able to ask how breathless you are. So we were able to compare day by day how this exercise set was challenging the patient. So
Okay, and what scale did you use?
Borg scale.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions.
And you're still here?
Yes.
Could you please help us to
Yeah.
so that we can see Carmen?
Hello, Carmen. Let's see if we can get her higher.
Hi.
Hi, Carmen. Are you ready, Carmen?
Yes, I am.
So I will now give the floor to you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm Mari Carmen from Valencia. I am physiotherapy professor in the University of Granada. And first of all, I want to acknowledge the University of Aarhus for inviting me to assess this PhD dissertation. And I want to thank the other advisory members for their welcome, the work that we have done, and they have been very supportive. In another side, I want to congratulate Jose for completing this dissertation with all the work that he has done. I think that it's always a hard work to finish a thesis. And when this thesis is about something, a clinical research work is always something to highlight. It's always very difficult to finish and to publish those trials. And I want to congrats Jose. His presentation was very clear. And I have some questions, and some of them has been maybe partially answered during the presentation. And maybe I can share PowerPoint with my main questions just to maybe to expand a little with Jose. Well, I will try to share my presentation. Okay. Well, let's try. I'm trying. Well, another. Well, now, please tell me if you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Nice. Well, you investigated about virtual autonomous physiotherapist agents. It was very interesting. I have made some research about those kind of telerehabilitation programs in different chronic diseases. And well, you study the results of this kind of support in different clinical profiles with, I think, good results in their symptom severity and functionality. I think when you say some of your limitations are about improvements in quality of life, I don't agree with you. I think you have almost the same results in quality of life than other studies. And I think you have the same results, almost the same results than the face-to-face treatments. This is a very good result, in my opinion. And later I will ask you about your opinion, but maybe first, as a clinician at the same time, I know the difficulties when you try to implement your ideas in the clinical context. And I want to ask you for maybe explaining what kind of things you have changed or adapted of your initial planning. You tell us before that some of your adaptations were to change from the glasses to your to the tablet, but maybe other things you have to adapt them or to change. Can you expand a little?
Thank you, Mari Carmen, for the questions. I think it's relevant, and I think for any person that wants to do a PhD, there is always a big challenge to make a plan and keep with the plan, because it always will be different things that happens during that period that you need to adjust, and the point is to finish the PhD. So the challenge that I have experienced here was one of the first was this with the glasses. Suddenly, the first study we did with inviting patients for focus group and asking for their views on augmented reality. Suddenly that study was not any more interesting because we were not on the way to have the glasses. But in any case, we should have this as a part of the PhD. Then we had challenge with the COPD patients. As I said before, we were moving to a new hospital, suddenly the 6-minute walk test was not the one that we planned. It was the shuttle walk test. So we were in the need to change and ask for new acceptance for the ethical committee. In reality, we were supposed to do 2 COPD studies, one that was for comparing the patients, and the second one was to follow the patients after pulmonary rehabilitation. That one was never executed because we saw that we were on the way to not have any more patients during the time we should close the hospital. So suddenly, in the middle of nowhere, we were in the need to have a new clinical trial, and we started to see, let's base this in sarcoidosis, because this patient group was follow up at our hospital, and we understood that we were in the need also to see what we can do with them. So, of course, you have a plan, you think everything is going to be as expected, and you put all your efforts, your knowledge, your experience on that, but suddenly things change. And you get more wise, but more stress as well. This is the point of a PhD. So,
Well, this is what usual.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but...
Yes, absolutely. Maybe I can share again my PowerPoint slides to show you my other question. Well, I don't know why this is so complicated each time.
It's the same button.
Sorry. Well, another question that I have, reading your studies, I think you have things in your virtual agent that are common to many other chronic patients, to many other clinical profiles, and far than maybe respiratory chronic diseases. Do you think that you can maybe apply your virtual platform to another different patient's profile?
Yes, well, if you remember in my slides, I present also a patient that has multiple sclerosis, and I think that woman, Sonia, she was also really, wow, this is something new that I have not experienced before, and it helped her a lot. And I think just for sure, if it's not lung patients, we had also the trial that we did in Finland with heart chronic patients. That trial is finished, and we understand that patients were able to shape better their heart training with this platform. But that article has never been published. I expect the researchers to publish it still. Let's hope that they will do it in a close future. So for sure, I think this technology can be addressed to other chronic patients, and I think it's clever to use an autonomous agent that can be adjusted to different variables of your disease that can help you to improve, or at least to keep you stable. Because when you have a chronic disease, it's not that you are going to run a marathon, but at least to keep your health as good as you have today. So I think it's clever to use such kind of systems potentially.
In this line, when Nina asked you about which kind of population could be the best to use your agent, and in the line of your answer, I have to say that I think your agent, your virtual agent. As a physical therapist, I want to think that we face-to-face are better than anything else. Because I don't want to be substituted by a machine. But your results are extremely good for and encouraging the use of those kind of platforms, maybe for only some of the patients. I think that some of the patients want to train with this kind of solutions, and others wants to be in another kind of setting with another ones with the physical therapist at their sides. Maybe just at the beginning, maybe this can be a future solution to implement mixed way to train the patients. Maybe they can just be followed by your agent. I think there are many things to explore around your proposal, and I understand that to finish a thesis can be exhausting for you and for your team and for your family, but I think you are motivated enough, and you need only to take some holidays maybe and just return to work, because I think you have a very promising career as a clinician and researcher at the same time. You can perform many trials and experience to answer small or big questions that I used to have. You have a very nice opportunities. Another question that I'm not going to put my slide because it takes so long, and I just read it. And do you think that maybe a mobile application coordinated with your agent can be of help? Because I have read many papers about this application just to register the milestones the patient can reach, and those kind of things can be a very nice motivating tool. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think and the most interesting thing in that area, and I'm working right now with this in telemedicine, is to figure out different technologies that that customize the kind of service the patient wants. So for sure, when you have to prompt your own data, this can create some errors. For example, we have patients here that they get an oximeter, they measure themselves, and they have to prompt this in an app. This can create some kind of errors, and we need to, via mobile phones, if they are using that, to have a really easy sensors that connects via Bluetooth, for example, and sends the information at once with no problem. And you have to, I'm sure that there are different models that you can have in different platforms. One of them is going to be a chat with a therapist. Another one is going to be video consultation. Another one will be when you have to make some tests, and if those tests are automatically much better. So it's just to understand what are the opportunities this person has to do by themselves, and what are the opportunities of the technology to give to this patient. I just was trying to find new ideas on how we can help patients that are hospitalized at home, making it easy. And I think there are new technologies. I'm not sure if you know Alexa from Amazon, or Siri from Apple, and so on, that you talk to an agent, and that agent is acting to you. So, for example, this could be interesting to every day in the morning, wake up, and the agent says, okay, hello, we are going to make a test on you, and please just put this sensor. Okay, I track that information. Are you happy that we send this information to the doctor? Okay, yes. And now your doctor is expecting to have a meeting with you. Would you like to start? Yes. So we have always like a voice that is telling you what you should do now and so on, and not being so complicated that you have always to interact. So I'm sure that the technology will help us out there, and sometimes patients feel that being participating in this kind of studies is really heavy things if things are not working from day one. So we need to use more technology to ease that interaction, and mobile phones is one of them.
I agree with you. Fine, my last question, and it's just I want to ask you for your opinion. The last years, I have seen more and more programs, physical therapy programs, where caregivers are part of the program, not to train the caregivers, just to make them part of the program. Some studies have shown that the caregivers and in the chronic respiratory disease, more importantly, the caregivers used to be a barrier for their autonomy, for their functionality, for your physical activity levels, sometimes because they don't have enough information, sometimes because it's their, it's very Spanish way to take care of the person's love, just to stay in the seated, and I can take you everything you need, and you can just sit and relax. And to take the caregivers as part in the programs of the rehabilitation programs is something promising in our patients. What do you think? Can the caregivers be part of your program?
Thank you for this question, and I think I was talking about this a bit before about the IPF patients. And it was not supposed. We were not expecting family to be so involved as they did with the IPF patients. So for me, it was surprising that anytime we had a follow-up, always a family member was in the room, and we were interviewing them after making the test, and they say, I'm training with my husband, and it's really funny. I get also soreness in my muscles and such kind of things. And I was, wow, are you training? Yes. And he gets more motivated with that. That's good. But I'm sure that not all the different diagnoses has same contact with their family. COPD was totally the opposite. They were always alone, and so there is no caregiver there. I understand from other studies as well that caregivers or family members are not happy of being in the need to close one part of their living room when the patients are training. So there are some that could be more reluctant to this kind of training if they have to have video consultations with a therapist or train with a video therapist that is watching what is in the background. But for sure, we need to develop some kind of courses that are focusing on the healthcare providers, the patients, and also the family members, in order to tell them how they should help their family members to have the best of this treatment. I'm not sure if I answered your question again.
Yes, you are answering. I just want your opinion. Well, I agree with you. Finally, they are very complex patients with extremely different familiar and social situations, and not all the therapeutic options are the best for all. And we need to just adjust to each one to make it work. Well, thank you for your answers. Thank you again for your presentation. And I want to congratulate your family. This is almost finished. You have helped him a lot for sure, because without our families, we can't finish a thesis, I know. And I want to congrats to your supervisors too. Very good job, very nice papers. And well, thank you all for this great opportunity to participate. And well, when my colleagues want to continue it, I'm done.
Thank you, Carmen. And please stay online. Thank you to both the opponents. And now I will ask the audience if there's any questions from the audience to Jose. It does not seem to be the case. And what about online? Do we have any online comments?
Maybe in the chat. Let's see if there is something. No?
No? Fernando. Yeah.
Fernando, where is it? Fernanda.
Yes. Could you please unmute? Because
yes,
we cannot hear you.
I have to do it by this system. Fernanda. Wait a minute, Fernanda, I will give you the microphone. Now you can unmute yourself, Fernanda.
Unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, hi. First of all, I wish to thank you for this presentation and congratulate you. It was a great job. And I just wanted to remark, as Mari Carmen said, that clinical trials are really a great job and opportunity to know your work and the patients, and you made all step by step. You followed all your patients personally, and we went through another work with rehabilitation, and seems that not all the researchers went step by step with the patients, and that was a great job. So I wish to say that and congratulate you, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Yeah, thank you. So if no one else has any comments, I should kindly ask you to leave the room now. And I should kindly ask all of the online guests to unmute and log out.
Okay, so
They
what?
need to log out.
No, I will just mute and close.
Hi, I can't see you or hear you.
Yes, you can hear us, but there is still people in the room. So I think the much better is that you call her maybe. So from now they are going to call you. We keep with this, and after 10 minutes we open everything again. But nobody can listen what is going to happen.
Okay.
So the telephone, your telephone.
Just give me a minute. I need to look it up whether I got it right here. Wow. So let me test, Carmen. I'm calling you. Can you hear?
Yeah. Okay, so I close. Okay. Can you hear us, Mari Carmen?
Yes.
Yes.
So everybody is on. So Jose, first of all, congratulations with the PhD degree.
Thank you.
And now you can applause. We all agree that you did a very nice presentation, that
Thank
you
you.
answered all questions and did a very good job and explained some of the things that were not so clear at the beginning, but it became much clearer today. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you for being my assessment committee and use so much time of your, for sure, busy agenda just read the whole thesis and give really good comments and feedback to improve with this. So
Fine. Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So
And bye-bye, Mari Carmen.
So everything well. Thank you, Mari Carmen and Fernanda and all the people there. My mother was there as well for participating in this event. And let's keep in touch and see you. I close now. Bye. We will celebrate.